Hello and welcome to a brand new episode. I'm Shiron91, and for the month of Halloween, we're going to take a look at one of my favorite movies that turned into a video game. Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. When I was really young, I grew up with Disney movies, like Sleeping Beauty, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pocahontas, you name it. But when I was younger, there was another movie that ironically wasn't a Disney movie until later on. Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. When I was younger, I was scared of this movie, along with Mary Poppins, with that one scene with a man floating up on the ceiling. I was a really weird child back then. I really didn't know why I was so scared of the movie. Maybe it was just because of how weird it was. But now that I'm older, I absolutely love this movie. And when I heard that this movie had a video game about it, I was like I had to have it. Back then, it was hard. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But now today, and as a reviewer, and I'm pretty mixed about it. But let's just go ahead and open that door to Halloween Town as we play Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. This game has a very long title. Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge is an action-adventure game that was made for the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox system. There were plans for a GameCube version of the game. However, it was cancelled for some unknown reason. And this game was released at the same time as The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King for the Game Boy Advance was released in North America. And before anyone asks, no, I do not have the game, and I can't review that because I don't have the equipment for it. Well, the game was created by a company known as Bermuda Vista Games, which I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, and was developed by Capcom, aka the same company known for the Devil May Cry and the Mega Man series. The game was released for the PlayStation 2 in Japan on October 21st, 2004, and was released in a premium pack also in Japan on September 29th, 2005, while the game was released in Europe September 30th in 2005 and in North America on October 10th, 2005. While the PlayStation 2 had a lot of weird release dates, at least the original Xbox's release dates weren't that confusing, since they were released in Europe September 30th, 2005 and North America on October 10th, 2005, the same days for the PlayStation 2 version was released. And the receptions of this game was, to put it as politely as I can, hot and cold like a Katy Perry song, with game rankings giving the PS2 a 64.95% rating. For the Xbox, it got a 66.46% rating. Dang, the original Xbox has definitely got it made. But I'm gonna do my best and give this review a fair review, as best I can. The story of the game takes place a year after the events of the original movie, where the town mayor announces the award for the most spine-tingling by a non-corporeal being. But Jack is just disappointed with this year's Halloween, so he decides to leave Halloween Town to try and find some new scares and screams for the next Halloween. While that happens, Locke, Jacques, and Beryl decide to bring Oogie Boogie back to life by sewing him together to seize control of Halloween Town, tricking its citizens into making traps, brainwashing Dr. Finkelstein, imprisoning Sally in a crypt, and capturing 5 of the 7 holiday world leaders. And Oogie's plan? To become the 7 holidays king. Once he takes control of Christmas Town, of course. But surprise, surprise, Sally was able to send a magical paper airplane to find Jack and warn him about what's happened. And just in time, Jack returns to Halloween Town on Christmas Eve, just to find out that Halloween Town is being controlled by Oogie Boogie himself, and it's up to Jack to stop him and save all of the holiday worlds. Now, story-wise, it's actually pretty good. While Jack is away, Oogie returns and tries to take over the holidays, and the length of the story is pretty decent too. Its pacing, however, isn't so good. I mean, I don't mind the whole story being too long or too short. I mean, I'm up for that. but I just really feel like that the pacing for each of the levels are poorly managed. Now the levels are actually separated by chapters, and this is where the poor pacing complaint kicks in. Now some levels in the game are really good. The length of each of the levels is very nonsensical. In most levels, I always expect a boss fight at the end of it, only to have that level end going into a grading system at the end of the level. And the grading system is something I'll get to much later in the game. Personally, I really don't think there's not much to say about the characters since they're all based off of Tim Burton's timeless classic, and they all look really well done too. Just like in the original movies, all of the characters look disgusting and ugly, just the way the movie intended it to be. There's Jack Skellington, Sally, Dr. Finkelstein, Behemoth, the Vampire Brothers, the Corpse Kid, the two Witch Sisters, the Hanging Tree and his Hanging Men, the Clown with the Tearaway Face, Sandy Claus as Jack Skellington pronounces him, Lock, Jock, and Barrel, and the main antagonist of the game, Oogie Boogie. That's what I call trying to do it in one breath. Anyway, the company and developers really did stay true to the original designs of the characters. The animations, however, they are kind of flimsy, but not bad, just a little bit funny here and there. When you get to fight Lock, Jock, and Barrel, Jack gives us the most terrifying, scary face he can ever make to those three little troublemakers.
Especially this one.
Jack in the movie did it a lot better. The voice work is really well done, the voice actors are very well acted, and the music itself is also faithful to the original movie. Sort of. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the songs are very well sung, but the lyrics, it can be cringe-inducing sometimes. At least, not all of the time. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Danny Elfman's songs in the 1993 movie, but I really have no idea why they decided to change up the lyrics. At least it's only for this game, and it's not bad, it's just okay. And now the gameplay. Oh, where do I begin? I guess I could try and start with a positive, I guess. Gameplay-wise, it's very similar to Devil May Cry, with the exception of it being easier for younger and less experienced players. Jack has the ability to transform into Santa Jack and the Pumpkin King later on in the game. Santa Jack can lay down 3 types of presents to throw his enemies off, 4 if you play it on easy mode. The Pumpkin King form allows him to burn down enemies and burn down doors, and all of the abilities can be upgraded at the Witch's shop. And how do you upgrade them? You beat up enemies, of course, and grab the currency of the game. Souls. Yes, the in-game currency of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas Oogie's Revenge are souls. But they are used as the in-game currency to help upgrade each of the powers that the power-ups have. But Jack isn't entirely defenseless. He has his impressive acrobatic techniques and a weapon known as the Soul Robber. And you might want to get used to him saying Soul Robber every time he uses it to grab onto enemies and smack them on the ground or latch onto ledges that glow. But it's not all about grappling stuff. The Soul Robber can be used as a weapon as well as smacking enemies to no end, and it can be upgraded too. Also, just like with Devil May Cry, the game has a grading system, and it grades you on how well you perform in each of the levels. Throughout the entire game, there are 24 chapters, including 2 secret ones, and you'll be graded depending on how well you did. The grading system, or as the game calls it, Nightmare Rank, is divided into 4 different rankings in terms of clear time, or how fast you beat the level, combos, or how many times you can hit the enemy, damage, or trying to make sure Jack doesn't get hit, and exclamation mark counts, or by taunting or startling your enemies. And you are graded by letters A, B, C, D, and the highest top rank grade an S. And depending on what grade of a letter you get soul bonuses, which can be really helpful when you really want to upgrade your Soul Robber, Pumpkin King, or Santa Jack powers. Now to me, the grading system is kind of like a double-edged sword. On one end, it's rating on how well you've done in a level, and if you mess up, you have no one to blame but yourself, and you really need to improve. But on the other end, these kinds of rating systems are a nightmare to get a perfect score. It has to be extremely specific on how well you can clear a level, depending on how well you can get a big combo, or less damage you can take, or how many exclamation mark counts you can get. That can be a lot to try and remember, but I think I can understand why this was implemented into the game. It really wants you to push yourself, and that's a good thing. So I'm willing to give it a pass. But the camera? Oh boy, the camera. The game's camera is like the Resident Evil's fixed camera angles. But Resident Evil did it better. Now I'm no video game developer, but I think a behind the back kinda look would be better. And you can't control the camera. And it only gets worse. And when that kind of issue becomes a problematic one, you're gonna have more issues than carrots. The camera can be smooth sometimes, but it's just how it's so fixated on switching positions, and sometimes that can really mess you up. It's honestly just as graceful as an amateur figure skater trying to perform professional tricks while blindfolded. Case in point, the camera is awful. Its controls, on the other hand, are a different story. The controls in the game are hit and miss. They can be responsive, and sometimes they can't. I'm not gonna put a whole lot of bad criticism on the controls because I was using a different controller, and by all means, the controllers are not that new anyway. They're pretty much used. But what I can't ignore is the absurd methods of attack. Aside from pressing the square button to smack your enemies with the soul robber and using the triangle buttons to use the soul slam attack on them, those are elementary. But soul cycle and soul spin, it's easier said than done. It requires the left analog stick to use the soul spin attack. However, it does have its uses. You can gather souls that are far away. That's pretty handy. And I honestly don't know how, but I was able to perform the soul cycle a few times here and there. And that unfortunately is like pulling teeth in order to perform, that you'd be lucky enough to do it. And I figured I would save this one for last. The boss fights. That honestly feels like having every single tooth extracted from your mouth. Hair pulling, rage inducing, soul crushing boss fights are a massive pain in the rear. Boss fights as a whole, they can either be easy or, as I mentioned, hard. Like stupidly hard and stupidly frustrating. At least the boss fights have variety. I mean, the Shadow of Oogie Boogie, a possessed Dr. Finkelstein, giant golems of fire and ice, and spiders that turn into smaller spiders when you hit its weak point on the backside. Spiders! Well, at least they're not as terrifying as Mortal Kombat X's spiders. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to schedule a therapy session after having the image of Mortal Kombat X's spiders jump scare in my mind. And these boss fights have its own fighting mechanic. Dance mode? Wait a cotton picking minute. This game was supposed to be an action adventure game, not an action adventure and a rhythm game. The game lied to me. Well, dance mode only happens during a boss battle where Jack can collect soul notes that will fly out of the enemies and bosses. When the dance gauge fills up completely, you will enter dance mode, where two markers will appear in the middle of the screen, and where you have to correctly press the buttons that are in the center of it. Good idea on paper, but it was poorly executed. For one reason. The backgrounds of the screen is very distracting. You have too many things happening all at once, and it could lead to a very confusing situation. But like I said before, a good idea on paper, but poorly executed. But that final boss, oh my god, that final boss can be burned by the Pumpkin King himself and never be reassembled ever again. Not only do you have to defeat the final boss by beating him up, but you gotta beat him in dance mode too. Oh my god. But wait! There's more. You have to be sure that you press the correct buttons on that dancing prop, because if you mess up only once, you will not only lose the combo that you have, but you lose health for every button you miss. And when you lose all of your health, you have to fight the boss all over again and do the dancing part of the game and pray you don't miss a single button. Are you serious? I know I said in my Final Fantasy VIII review that I would rather pass Kidney Stones than play Triple Triad, but this one, oh boy, I'd rather pass the biggest Kidney Stone than deal with that final boss again. And all of it is done on easy mode. The reason why I did it on easy mode was not to push myself too much. I was lucky enough to beat the final boss with just one smidgen of health left. But thankfully, once you beat him, Jack learns a very important lesson, that his home is in Halloween Town. And we get the same thing that happened in the original movie, minus the snow and the encore of Sally's song. But instead you get credits and an overall rating on how well you did in the entire game. Joy. I'm not gonna lie, reviewing this was not very easy because it's The Nightmare Before Christmas, one of my favorite movies of all time, and this was made. And I wanted to like this game so much. I really did. But there was just so much wrong with it. In fact, this is the one game I can't give a 5 out of 5. But I sure as heck won't give it a 1 out of 5. That doesn't deserve it. It doesn't deserve it at all. And so, my final rating for this game, with a heavy heart, is a 3 out of 5. Now, don't get me wrong. This game did try its hardest. But its unpolished gameplay, annoying fixed camera angles, and the poor pacing of the story and chapters were the reasons why I didn't love this game. But do I like it? That's debatable. If I really want to at least experience myself playing as one of my favorite Disney characters, I'd rather play Kingdom Hearts because at least Halloween Town is awesome in that game. But that's not to say that Halloween Town in this game is not bad at all. It's still good. The grading system was very well done, I can give it that too. And honestly, the argument of the story copying too much of the movie instead of being original, I find that malarkey. The story is a pass. Its graphics are just as faithful to the movie itself, along with the character designs, and I applaud that this gaming company did its homework to really study up on the designs of Tim Burton's work. Though to be honest, I'd rather watch the movie or play Kingdom Hearts than play this game again. I got this game off of eBay, but you can find it on other kinds of online stores. I would say it's more like a rent it than a buy it, but I won't stop you from buying the game. So if you want to see for yourself on how good or bad this game is, go ahead and have a look at Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. And the game is done. And you want to know the biggest thing? This was supposed to be a sequel to this movie. And in all honesty, I don't really think it would be considered as a sequel because, in all honesty, this movie was a really big hit. Well, back in the day, it wasn't, but it grew over the years. And I admit, when I was a young kid, I did not like this movie. But now that I was older and tried to watch it again, I positively love this movie. And it will be my 100% favorite movie of all time. And if people ask, should I see a sequel to this movie? I don't really think so, because this had stop motion animation. That takes a lot of hard work, dedication, patience, and effort. And in all honesty, that was a lot. I will leave with this. Tim Burton was in the right to defend his project. And if we would have seen a sequel to the movie, it wouldn't be the same. So, Tim Burton, I love your work. and I hope you keep up with your work because I love it. Cheers to Tim Burton. Is the Spyro Reignited trilogy out yet? Thank you all for watching this video, and if you liked it, please hit that subscribe button and click on the notification bell to let you all know when videos are coming out. Also, the links for my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and my Patreon are in the description below. I hope you check those out. I'm Shiron91, and I hope to see you all on the next episode. Happy gaming, everybody, and happy Halloween.